Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. When you have characters that don't age much or at all over the decades, it can seem fairly controversial to cement their advanced years in some way. Pros and cons can be argued for or against these shakeups and how they'd influence overall canon. Thank goodness for alternate universes. Going by another viewer request, I'm taking issue with the first appearance of Mayday Parker in What If number 105, also known as Spider-Girl number 0. Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. The cover is about as simple as they get, with a completely blank background and Spider-Girl just chilling between texts asking who this next-gen Spidey is. The pose is fine, though I think there should be more of her right hip drawn here, because as it is, it looks like a detached leg is folded over her left one, and she's missing a chunk of her butt. Chasing obscure beauty trends with plastic surgery can really get out of hand, people. Written by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz, the latter being on art with Bill Sienkiewicz and Matt Webb, we start with some bios of the concerned players in the story: Peter Parker, his wife Mary Jane, their daughter May, and the Green Goblin. In the main 616 universe, MJ got pregnant after years of happy marriage to Peter. No one tell Joe Quesada. The shock may cause his head to explode. Sadly, after the delivery, Mrs. Parker was told they'd lost the child. However, someone named Allison Mongrain was posing as a nurse in the delivery room and left with a mysterious package that was later handed over to Norman Osborne. From what I read, writers just never mentioned this again, and according to Joe Q, the entire pregnancy was retconned as never happening. What did I just say about not telling him? But what if Mary Jane had never lost the baby, and Spider-Man had a Spider-Girl? What? You mean the arachnid-themed lady we saw on the cover was really related to the webhead all along?
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
Kinda makes that question they put there feel all the more pointless just 2 pages in. Huh, folks? Anyway, we go to a basketball game at Midtown High School, where Mayday has snagged a rebound and is headed for the other end of the court. Guided by a tingling sensation in her head, she deftly avoids the other team's players, then leaps unusually high on a splash page, landing a dunk that shatters the backboard and wins the game. Your name is Mayday Parker, and this is the first day of the rest of your life. I thought my name was the Angry Spork, and... Wait, have the comics become sentient and start rebooting people now? Are we sure this is a high school student? She looks like a middle-aged actress whose plastic surgery is still a couple of years away from betraying her. The crowd cheers at her victory, except for May's parents. Naturally, they've aged to be only slightly different from their young adult selves. Peter with a goatee and a debonair white streak in his scalp, maybe so he can finally win that Doctor Strange look-alike contest, and MJ looking largely the same, except with a slightly less flattering haircut. She worries their daughter has developed powers, but Pete has been watching out for that since her birth, so doubts it. Yeah, whoever heard of the child of a superhero only developing powers in their teen years? Except in 90% of stories about a superhero having kids. After May gets cleaned up, her parents congratulate her impressive skills, though the girl isn't sure herself how she managed it. But if she can perfect her moves, a college scholarship and a shot at the pros are a lock. Not to mention, head tingles that help you win just screams endorsement deal with Head & Shoulders. Said tingling returns as a mysterious figure watches from outside.
Go away! We're having a good time until you showed up, jeepers!
Peter's spider sense activated as well, though neither he nor his daughter are sure of the cause, as they're approached by some other students. Teammate and one of May's closest friends, Davida Kirby, narration accidentally leaves out the A so it reads David instead, whoops, as well as football players Moose and Brad Miller, described as simply Brad, enough said. Translation, blander than white bread flavored mayonnaise. May already has plans with her science club pals, Courtney and Jimmy, but suggests they all hang out together. Moose has to be the stereotypical jock and refuse to hang out with anyone who likes to learn.
Nerd!
Brad seems to back this up, that the party is going to be the girls' basketball team and some football players, and this attitude in him disappoints May, so she passes on their shindig. Despite this, Jimmy, who's crushing on the young Miss Parker, is convinced she's totally into Brad. Sorry, but adding superheroes isn't going to make me care about this One Tree Hill reboot. Walking home, the parents reflect on the birth of their little miracle. Pete having wanted to stay with his family at all times, but having wall-crawling responsibilities. When their daughter was just 2 years old, he had his final brawl with the Green Goblin, a fight that inevitably ended in Norman's death, with Peter losing any desire to continue his dual identity. I just assumed that Doc Ock, Scorpion, Venom, and all the other villains would just retire on the spot. Because things always go that well for me. Parker luck and all that, right? Since he hung up his webs, the two decided not to burden May with knowing about Peter's past, but they're beginning to question if that was the right call. It's almost funny how things eventually worked out. Some thought it was in poor taste, but I stand by putting those Groucho glasses on Gobby's fresh corpse. Elsewhere, May is out with her nerds, disagreeing about what the jocks are like, when she feels that mysterious tingling again, even sharper than before. Spider sense is usually in A-flat. On pure instinct, she pushes her friends out of the way of an exploding pumpkin bomb. The three are obviously shaken, but largely unharmed. Oh my gosh, look! Something's streaking toward us! In the future, many supervillains do their crimes in the nude. Sometimes, if you point and laugh, they give up their unlawful ways altogether. No, it's a new Green Goblin, telling them not to fear the guy that nearly blew them to smithereens, as long as their athletic friend delivers a message to her dad, to meet at midnight tomorrow, at the bridge. He'll know which one, and Gobby takes off laughing. She later informs her parents, uncertain why some green goon would care about her pops, who works as a science consultant for the police. Peter sends MJ and May upstairs to call and make sure Courtney and Jimmy got home safe, which is so he can privately use his personal phone. With Norman and Harry both dead, that leaves the third generation Osborne, Harry's son Normie, who would be about 20 years old now. He calls Liz Allen, the young man's mother, but her current husband, Nelson, answers. Things have not been going well for them lately. Liz got sick a few weeks back, the prognosis isn't good, and Normie hasn't shown up since he found out. After the call ends, MJ lets her hubby know that the nerds are fine, and Peter, being Peter, thinks that he could have been able to do something. Parker, you know what blaming yourself does. It gives you spider ulcers, which are 10 times worse than normal ulcers, and Mephisto always pops up, offering to alter time to make them go away in exchange for your marriage. His daughter deserves better than this, even with more than a decade of normalcy, thinking his wife was right that they should have told May earlier what she was born into. Mary Jane reminds him that theirs is a strong young lady, because they were good parents regardless of other mistakes, and deserves to know more, given the emergence of her powers. We see May covertly listening from the stairs, shocked at hearing her mom say she can handle the truth.
No truth handler, you! Bah! I deride your truth-handling abilities!
That she's the daughter of Spider-Man. Spider-Man? Between my basketball skills and the crazed masked man out to get me, I thought Dad was secretly Larry Bird this whole time. In an abandoned Osborne Industries building, Normie is talking, at a non-present Spider-Man since he's all alone.
You always talk to yourself?
Sometimes I'm the only one who'll listen.
Blaming the webhead for the deaths of his grandpa and dad, Normie feels it's his responsibility to reclaim their honor, thinking his mom has secretly prayed for this, vowing to end the cycle of hate the wall crawler started. He stands around some dramatically lit candles with revenge tattooed on his chest, and I guess some kind of spider, and across his back, honor thy father, kill the spider. Yep, I'm sure this is exactly what Liz prayed for, her son to become a 4th-level edgelord. Man, when he starts his podcast, he's going to get so many subscribers who consist entirely of maladjusted 30-somethings and middle schoolers who think they are already adults. The next day, Pete tries to enlist his pal Johnny Storm of the Fantastic Five to help him confront Normie, because he just knows it's him in that goblin suit. However, this future FF is on a deep space mission and won't return in time to help. Since his history with the Osborns is too personal to involve the police, he needs another option. I wonder if I could make this a crossover and ask an Elseworlds Superman to lend a hand. Alone in the school gym, May has made 20 shots in a row that were nothing but net, realizing it was less practice and more her freaky powers that made her such a good player. At first depressed by this, she lightens up when deciding to test out these moves a bit, letting loose and ping-ponging across the court. It's not just cool, it's too cool. That's cool with 5 O's, so of course she's gonna feel better. Her spider sense alerts her to DeVito walking in and decides to keep the news of her powers to herself for now. May assures that despite Brad and Moose's behavior, the two of them are still best buds, but she has to skedaddle. Meanwhile, Peter finally realized he could check with the Avengers, since they've always had some top-tier heroes, even citing himself having been a member. This was years before that would happen in the main canon, by the by. Yet, when he sees who the current lineup is, they all appear too young for him to risk their lives. Even Jubilee, apparently. Her 616 counterpart was in her mid-teens around this time, and this is set 15 years in the future, meaning she has reached or is approaching her 30th birthday. I think someone who palled around with Wolverine and has made it to the Avengers is powerful enough to help you out, dude. There's also J2, another juggernaut, and apparently Vision acting as the computer system. But ignoring all that, ignoring how he was in high school when he started as Spidey, because different time, different world, despite this being at a point where he should be familiar with the recruitment standards to join the Earth's mightiest heroes, he decides to leave.
Moron!
No idea how the conversation went, only that he barely made it out with his dignity and couldn't put those kids at risk, and that Normie is his responsibility, his problem. In case you haven't picked up on the subtext, Peter Parker, noted genius, has the brains of moldy tapioca. Are we sure he actually watched May that closely for any powers to emerge? Maybe she was wall-crawling as a toddler right in front of him and he just didn't notice. At the Parker home, May is shouting at her mom to be told the truth, how the omission of it is a lie, and that she doesn't know who she is anymore, aside from a freak. MJ, thinking this is being melodramatic, and quoting her somehow, ultimately agrees, as she explains about why her parents kept her in the dark, and takes her to the attic. Between the history lesson we got earlier and the Spidey gear packed away, May understands her folks were just trying to protect her, but then gets all philosophical, saying how you can't save someone from who they are or the responsibility they share. She read that off a Snapple cap earlier that day. By sheer coincidence does it apply to this situation. At the bridge, at midnight, Peter's Spidey sense narrowly saves him from an attack by the Green Goblin, who's angry that he's not dressed as Spider-Man. Since Uncle Pete is still breathing instead of young Norman's predecessors, he'll get him to wear the costume somehow, even threatening May. Parker happens to be packing heat, willing to do whatever it takes to protect his family, when someone else arrives, telling him to put Peter down. It's MJ reminding how they used to babysit Normie, played with him, read him stories, changed his diapers. Man, if she brought embarrassing baby pictures, this fight is over! Gabi does let Peter go, but crushes his gun. I guess it's kind of awkwardly shown, then threatens to fry Mary Jane's face if he doesn't get that fight to the death with Spider-Man. That's when May arrives on a splash page, dressed in Ben Reilly's suit, which was also in the attic, having remembered which bridge was so prominent to the Spidey v. Goblin legacy, kicking her surrogate cousin in the face. "You want a spider person, Normie? Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot!" A line she got from her ma when she was younger that had an impact on her dad, which will hopefully have an effect on her opponent.
Must be painful to make so little sense all the time.
I mean, I think if she left out the tiger part and kept what's after that, it would have worked a lot better for the situation. It's always been associated with a very flirty MJ meeting Pete for the first time, so it's kind of weird to see it here, even if it's explained as being said in a nervous rush or something. Having previously figured family was fair game, Gabi is now complaining that he wanted to destroy her dad, as he fires a laser blast. May figures she's due some payback for Grandpa Norman trying to kidnap her. May isn't aware of Normie's bachelor's degree in vendetta economics, so her argument crumbles when he reveals his sinister spreadsheets. She webs his zapping hand, which I guess is just on the one glove, but it's freed by an electroshock pulse, demonstrating the webbing's ineffectiveness. While MJ is worried about her daughter's inexperience, Peter recognizes why May is bantering, to keep her foe talking and off balance, as Green Goblin rants about repaying agonies and to stop calling him Normie. The tingling in your head blares as you leap aside, barely avoiding the razor-sharp bats. I think I know what Bruce Wayne is thinking right now.
Hello, lawsuit.
May saves herself from freefall by firing a web line to the bridge, giving her a rush she never got from basketball. Didn't you web swing here? I would figure that trip is where the drama of getting used to web shooters and all the exhilaration would kick in. May continues chatting in the fight, bringing up his mom Liz, whom Grandpa Norman never really accepted as part of the family, and how disgraceful it is that Normie would want to emulate that. This gets the villain to pull another pumpkin bomb, precisely what Spider-Girl was hoping, as she'd been keeping track of his toys. She covers it up with webs, which Gobby initially laughs off, since webbing his hand didn't work the last time, yet he would need to use his electroshock to free it, which would also detonate the explosive. And that's precisely what happens. Bomb exploding in Gobby's hand, and Peter being proud that his kid outwitted her opponent. Though the explosion just destroyed that one glove and left him dazed, because future science armor or something. He's mostly uninjured, but too out of it to avoid an oncoming truck as he lands. While it'd be easier to let him become a grill au gratin, May has too great a sense of responsibility to let him die, so webs Normie, pulls him away from the vehicle, and right toward her fist, knocking him out. Unfortunately, that mask was not armored like the rest of the suit. It was something he got at a Spirit Halloween, so she kinda ended up killing him by accident. Normie's funeral would be closed casket because, well, his face became an innie. Later, Normie is taken into custody, restrained by a body shackle of some kind, while he sings a Spider-Girl variant of the classic 60s Spidey theme. This makes his stepdad Nelson think he's really lost it, because I guess he doesn't think a Spider-Girl stopped him. And yet he goes on to wonder what happened to Spider-Man, if he got a happily ever after, or died like Daredevil. Mean getting tripped by Stiltman and falling into a vat of fruit paste at the Pop-Tart factory? If Spidey's been gone for ages and he's incredulous about this new lady arachnid, who does Nelson think took Goblin down? Anyway, the Parkers spend a few hours at the precinct making statements and answering questions without mentioning the new spider in town. Not even Normie says anything about it, because reasons, I guess. When they get home, they have something of a farewell ceremony, burning the box of Spidey costumes and gear in their backyard. They don't say anything, though May wants to tell her parents everything will go back to normal. But she can't, as the comic ends on a desk in her room where she's already drawn up designs for another spider suit and web shooters. That was What If 105/Spider-Girl 0, and I did not really care for it personally. I like the concept fine, child of a superhero growing into their own long after their predecessor retired. I guess I'm just a little surprised this is what launched the MC2 universe. Maybe if I'd read it back then, I could have seen more of what others did. And perhaps part of the popularity was the teases of the future FF and Avengers that added intrigue to this splinter canon. Whether or not you recognized Speedball or Thunderstrike, it'd be interesting to learn how Jubilee got on the team, or who the Skrull lady Elijah was, and what made the Fantastic Four eventually expand to another member. They can't have more than 5 or less than 4, because they still have a lot of monogrammed stuff they want to keep. Don't get me wrong, that this expanded into its own ongoing, and a next, is fine, and instead of being stirred into action by tragedy like her dad, Mayday wants to prevent tragedy, which is a nice enough distinction that also kind of connects to the themes of responsibility. I just wasn't really vibing with this first foray into this verse. Maybe it's because it was meant as a one and done that the only reason we get for Peter quitting after years of attempts in the main canon was so glib. Sure, Peter lost his right leg, but that's not cited as a factor in his decision, even if it would have posed his own challenges had he kept going. The reason given is that he just didn't feel like doing it anymore after the Goblin died, which is kinda weird. The bio page mentions how 616 Mary Jane was, at the time, pursuing a psychology degree, and I think that would have been a nice addition to this story, her using that education to deal with family problems. Not that she's bad here, but I think if she decided to go to the bridge, it would have made more sense if she had an actual strategy to try reasoning with Normie, rather than show up and say, this guy throwing bombs and shooting lasers isn't dangerous because we babysat him. May, however, didn't seem to have that emotional struggle against someone supposedly as close to the family as Normie. It's mentioned they haven't seen him in a while, but it's also mentioned that the two kids kind of played together, so nothing really gets built on that. There's also some dialogue that either feels like a dude in his 30s trying real hard to write snappy teen dialogue for a generation he's not familiar with, or involves context we don't get, like why Mary Jane thinks her daughter is quoting her lines when yelling at her. Peter is just irrational. I get that he trusts Johnny Storm since they've been friends for years, but his excuses for not bringing in a team of supers just because they're young, even though he should have at least some familiarity with the resident former X-Man whose powers would have only gotten stronger, it's all just so...
Stupid! You're so stupid!
When they say beggars can't be choosers, Peter Parker says, "Hold my beer." Then we have Normie. Hoo boy! First, he's all serious, like he's some chosen figure to avenge his family, however he learned about Peter's secret, and treats it like some holy calling. He does talk in what could be seen as a juvenile manner, exclusively calling the Parkers Uncle Pete and Auntie Em, but I think that may be more of a taunt, that this is what their little nephew grew into, so it doesn't clash too much. But the jokes come out of left field and don't feel like menacing quips from a more composed foe, while that singing when he was arrested felt like standard "he be crazy." This felt less like it was to show how he was off his rocker and more just plain inconsistent to me. There's also mention of his mom, Liz, falling ill and not doing so good, but Normie claims she's safe, but doesn't seem to mind that his grandpa didn't care about her. I mean, did he do something to his mom to put her in the hospital thinking that would keep Spider-Man away? Seems like they could have left Liz out of this aside from a couple of mentions when Spider-Girl was distracting Normie, and it really wouldn't change the story. May's characterization is mostly fine, if a little dramatic, but hey, teenager. She adapts to her powers pretty quickly, though one could argue her athleticism helped out with that. Not sure why she wears glasses for one page and nowhere else. Kinda makes me wonder if she needs them or not. Fashion statement, maybe? Anyway, she was clever in defeating Normie, though some may disagree if that's earned. She's complaining about how she doesn't know who she is, and then just knows so she can save her dad. Her remarks about the legacy of responsibility don't feel like it's something a high schooler would say. It's not the worst progression I've seen, but maybe just a little choppy. I thought the art was fine mostly, though the use of inks can make some character outlines feel a bit scratchy, and there are panels where the 15-year-old looks older than her own mom. The cross-hatching technique looks better in some moments than in others, yet colors are utilized pretty well. I liked this Goblin's design, feeling both classic yet distinct, and the lack of a glider, apparently having some means of flight built into the suit, I think adds a menacing quality that he can move more independently without a vehicle to be knocked off of, or tricked into impaling himself with. And good thing Ben Reilly's suit just so happens to perfectly conform to the physique of a teenage girl, huh? Hey, I like the basic design, but either May had time to use a sewing machine to alter it before swinging into the fight, or she used a lot of sewing pins and staples while hoping it was too dark for anyone to notice. The comic may not be up my alley, but the fact that it spawned a title that went about 100 issues and an entire universe suggests that things improved from here as the world was expanded upon. If you want to see where the Mayday Mania got started, this is where you'll want to start. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.